All right, our next storyteller is Lee. Lee, come on up. Let's hear for Lee, everybody.
Thank you. Is this close enough? I never stand here, right? All right. Let's see. I had to see his face because something about the news report told me when he killed his mother before anybody else, I felt something I didn't want to feel. There were memories there, and I thought maybe somewhere in his face was somebody I could identify with, and I didn't want to. But I understand being trapped in a house with a woman who thinks she's lost everything, that nothing else goes forward, nothing else lives, and anybody who loves her enough to prove to her that they're not going to go anywhere and everything's going to be okay and I'm going to protect you no matter what. No matter what, she manipulates and she tests you and she wants to know if the love is real. And I went all the way back through memories I'm not supposed to have. All the way back to being left with complete and total strangers with an open-door policy to people who would ask me to marry them when I grow up. My father stopped that. But I remember being tested, my love, my devotion tested against the older two who didn't appreciate me being there because they had done without her for 8 years, and I was tested. And I remember the violence. I remember watching the rocks come through the window, nearly killing or injuring my father. If it had been a little bit to the left, it ricocheted off the other side of the dining room and landed next to my mother's youngest if it had been a little bit closer to the right. And I watched all this, and I wondered why and how I was supposed to handle it. And then there was the accusation that I was doing things I wasn't doing and how I was going to get beat up. And I didn't know how to handle it, but I worked real hard to stay the course and prove myself. But it doesn't work with some people, see. No matter how devoted and trusting and trusted, it doesn't always work. And she will turn screws you didn't know you had and accuse you of being part of a conspiracy that doesn't exist. And don't tell anybody. And then when you face her as an adult and you have these conversations with her, she tells you it didn't happen. It's all in your mind, and you quietly bury things. But then you hear these stories about people who react in ways that you had the ability to control, but they did not. You start hearing more and more about violence out of control among people that nobody is talking about because that's your mother. You don't hurt, argue, disrespect, or leave your mother. But they don't talk about the women who trap us in places where they would tell you, they will expose your breasts, touch a nipple, and if you don't respond, you're no good. If you want to be with your father, you're doing the devil's work, and you enclose all of this nonsense. And she tells you to trust no one. She tells you you can't tell anybody, because she's going through this private war between her and the world. And then you meet up with these people in these news stories who do things about their situation. And you have to see their faces. And in his face, I saw everything my mother did to me. But I've outgrown the personal, irresponsible immaturity of attacking something that is part of me. I've outgrown being manipulated by people who want to find a reason to abuse somebody who hasn't done anything, but because you're so conveniently located and mental illness and religion gives people an excuse to find the most innocent example in their midst and persecute them, you have to stand up to all these enemies. And I imagined that the young man understood these things. And the penalty of death is death. But the penalty of keeping that innocent boy prisoner in a woman who felt betrayed was to activate his mind against women she may have accused him of cheating with, like my mother accused my father. victimized babies that represented why he didn't have a father in the home, because my mother loved playing that game too. Especially after he found another woman, after years of telling me he will never find another woman like me. He will never have this again, not realizing he didn't want that again. And then being trapped with the idea that the sin follows. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree, and I'm still a woman, and there isn't a man anywhere in Massachusetts who will believe that I'm not as crazy as she is. And I've lived all these lives, all these memories thinking, I don't need therapy, I just need time. I don't need therapy. And I'm thankful that I've outgrown the fact that I don't need therapy. And I will deal with this with a professional. I've got his name and number, and so help me, Father. I will heal and find peace.